What's going on, everybody? I am Mac, back with another video. As always, do me a favor, like, comment, subscribe. Follow on Instagram, link is in the box below. So, a little bit of a fun video today. So, every year I post my NFL season predictions, my standing predictions, where I think teams are going to go in the conference, etc. You know what I mean? And this is just one of those videos to where it shows that I can sit down and laugh at myself. I can sit down here and say that I was wrong on camera. And looking back at the season predictions I posted last summer, there were quite a few teams that I was dead wrong about. And I'm surprised that I was able to find 10 teams that I was wrong about. Now, some of these teams I wasn't completely wrong about, but yeah, it's still some of them are still worth mentioning. But I'm going to get on to it. So these are 10 NFL teams that I was way off of for 2023-24. So again, I always go in descending order. And so that means I'm going to go from 10 to 1, which means the team that I thought I was the least wrong about, but still worth being on here. And then ending up with the team that I thought I was the most wrong about. So let's get started. My number 10 team that I was wrong about this season was the Philadelphia Eagles. Now, like I said, I wasn't completely wrong about the Eagles because they still made the playoffs and they still had a good year on paper, but it's just the way that they were and just my overall takes on them at the beginning of the season. So let's hear what I had to say about Philly before the season began. The Philadelphia Eagles are still the cream of the crop in this division, and if any team is to break that cycle of no repeat division champs since '03 and '04, it's them. They're going to break their own cycle. Philadelphia is loaded, and they just got even better. Coming off that Super Bowl loss stings, but they built off it again. They lost Javon Hargrave, Miles Sanders, Isaac Seumalo, and TJ Edwards, but they were able to keep the rest of that elite offensive line intact. In the draft, stole Jalen Carter, got Nolan Smith, and they got Kelly Ringo in the draft. Those are significant additions right there to the Philadelphia Eagles. Then they were able to keep Jason Kelsey, James Bradbury. They were able to keep Brandon Graham. They were able to keep Big Play Slay. They were able to keep Fletcher Cox. They were able, and of course, Jalen Hurts and Scott as well. Jalen Hurts extended. Coming off that season that he had, Philly expects a lot more out of him, and I think he's able to take on the challenge. They added Terrell Edmonds. They got Penny. They got Williams. They got DeAndre Swift on draft day to make an already stacked run offense even more stacked and powerful. I think the only roster in the NFC that can really compete with Philly are the 49ers, because maybe that's what they built their whole team around, a quarterback, like the Eagles did as well. But really, the Eagles are just the most complete team in the league. They got a ton of talent, offense and defensively, and there's just no excuse for them to at least not make it back to the NFC title game. Philly wins 14 games again, and I got them finishing with the best record in the league, 14-3. My record prediction for the Eagles this season. Yeah, I mean, I know it doesn't sound like I was way off of them by only 3 games, but you figure in the collapse that they had and Jalen Hurts just taking a big step backward. I mean, he threw 15 interceptions this season. He just didn't really seem to play like how he was last year, except for when they were doing the tush push all season. But the biggest thing was that Philly's defense just was dominated this season, and I thought that was going to be the biggest aspect of that team this year. But yeah, they were the furthest from a complete team this year, man, and it showed as they got dominated in the first round of the playoffs by the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. So that's why Philly is 10th on here. My number 9 team are the New York Giants, so staying in the NFC East. Now, the Giants were an interesting team in 2022 as they went 9-7-1, beat the Minnesota Vikings in the wild card game, and then they got dominated by Philly in the divisional last year. So hopes were pretty high that the Giants would continue that momentum and they could possibly make it back to the playoffs this season. And I was one of those people who had those expectations. York Football Giants. I got them taking second place. Man, did the Giants come out of nowhere. I love the offseason the Giants have. For one thing, they have a fantastic head coach in Brian Daboll, much deserved coach of the year, with making Daniel Jones into more of the quarterback that he is and getting the most out of the little talent that he had as well. He has a very interesting roster. Hodgins being that number one receiver. They didn't do much with bolstering it except draft Jalen Hyde, but the wide receiver room fills slots, like Robinson, Campbell, Slayton, Crowder, Shepard, and Hodges. But now you add Darren Waller as well. There should be no excuse for Daniel Jones to not have a step forward year this year as well. And Daniel Jones, speaking of him, he got a bag thrown at him, extended for 4 years, and he got a front that was loaded to him. Saquon Barkley just got paid as well. But the thing with the Giants, the blocking needs to improve, and they added to that O-line as well, and it got better. The defense is very talented as well, like Dexter Lawrence, like Thibodeau, like Williams, like Jarea, like McKinney, Isaiah McKinney, and like Jackson as well. So, and also they added Bobby Okereke and Deontay Banks. Overall, this Giants team just feels much improved, and building off a season where they went 9-7-1, won a playoff game before they just got destroyed by a far better team in Philadelphia in the divisional. This just feels like an overall improved team, and I love the direction the Giants are going. Giants, they're not going to be an easy team to beat this year, and I got them going 11-6 this year. I think the Giants are in for a very bright future. I don't know really what depended on this season, whether it was the talent around the QB or Brian Daboll in general, because I know a lot of Giants fans are starting to want Brian Daboll, to be fired. I know that he's on the hot seat at the very least over in New York. So again, I really don't know what to put it on, but Daniel Jones's injuries certainly didn't help out this year for the Giants. And I think at this point, Tyrod Taylor and Tommy DeVito were better options than Daniel Jones this season. So was 2022 just a fluke for Daniel Jones? Did he just have one bad year crackling under pressure of the new extension that he had? Like I said, I don't know what to pin it on. And then as far as the receivers go, Slayton and Waller were still big factors, so it's not like I was way off of them. But the O-line still sucks this year, and I said they were not going to be an easy team to beat. Yeah, okay. I mean, they lost week 1 40-0 on Sunday Night Football to Dallas, and that pretty much set the tone for the whole season for them. So that's why the Giants are number 9 on my list. Number 8, get ready for this, are the Carolina Panthers. Now, the Panthers finished with the worst record in the NFL this season at 2-15. They will not have the number 1 overall pick in the draft. That goes to the Chicago Bears because of the trade that they had with DJ Moore. But that didn't stop me from voicing my opinion on the Carolina Panthers before the season began. The Carolina Panthers. This team could surprise teams this year, and I would be on the lookout for them. The Panthers are back on the right track, in my opinion. Don't you just love it when Frank Reich gets hired by the Panthers, a guy who I was screaming at for us to sign as offensive coordinator, and he had an experienced head with a coaching hire who showed potential in Indy as well. Yeah, good thing we didn't hire him as OC. But the Panthers are also defensively tough. They got Burns, Horn, Brown, Chin, Von Bell, Shai Tuttle as well. And, of course, they drafted Bryce Young, so there's probably going to be, question mark. There's going to be headlines with him. Miles Sanders they brought in the mix, and Terrence Marshall Jr. Is he ready to be a number 1 receiver?
They drafted Mingo and got Hayden Hurst as well. They added Adam Thielen and DJ Shark as well. But are they strong enough to be able to compete? I don't like that they're going to be a full year removed now without CMC. And, I just think that there likely to be some growing pains with a rookie quarterback in 2023. But if there's any coach that I trust with working with quarterbacks, it's Frank Reich. Carolina can win this week NFC South division if Young matches the hype, but I don't know if I'm ready to hop on board with that yet. 9-8 is my prediction for the Panthers. I got them taking a big step forward, but I don't know if they're ready for that playoff spot yet.
I don't know in what way the Panthers were supposed to surprise me, but they definitely did surprise me this season. I didn't think they'd finish with 15 losses this year. And Frank Reich got fired. So enough about that right there. Chase Young, or not Chase Young, Bryce Young, excuse me. His rookie season was not terrible, but it was just kind of meh. He threw 11 touchdowns and 10 picks. And all the guys I listed in that take were complete non-factors for Carolina this season. So yeah, man, I said they could win 8 or 9 games. They only won like a quarter of that. So I was way off of Carolina this season, man. Wow. Never take anything at face value again. But let's move on to number 7. My number 7 team are the Dallas Cowboys. Now, the Cowboys, for the third consecutive season, finished 12-5. And for the third consecutive season, they disappointed us in the playoffs. Well, really, it's been more than 3 seasons since the Cowboys have done that, let's be honest. But there were some head scratchers that the Cowboys did in the offseason that I thought could warrant them to take a step back. Let's listen to what I had to say about the Cowboys.
The Dallas Cowboys finished third. Now, the Cowboys still have a ton of firepower on that offense, and they still got a strong defense right there, but they made one fatal mistake, in my opinion. They fired Kellen Moore. Why did they fire him? They were second in scoring and yards under his offense. Why did they fire him? I just don't get it. He was the main catalyst of why Dallas was so dominant on offense. Tony Pollard is still a great running back. Is he 100% good to go? And with Mike McCarthy calling the shots, I just think it's a step back as far as their offense goes, and that's been Dallas's bread and butter, like I said. Brandon Cooks with CeeDee Lamb, that's going to be good, but, with Ezekiel Elliott being gone, it might be best for them, but like I said, is Tony Pollard 100% good to go? Defensive side, Micah Parsons is a stud, easily Defensive Player of the Year candidate. Adding Stephon Gilmore should help out a lot, especially with a guy like Trayvon Diggs, who's basically the Jameis Winston of cornerbacks. And then on the defensive line, it's still a good 4-man front that can cause a lot of pressure. The main thing with the Cowboys this year, it seems like they have to win it under Dak Prescott. And Dak Prescott, when the limelight is underneath him and when he's under pressure, he doesn't really strive in situations like this. This is a very big year for Dak Prescott, and if he fails, Cowboys are going to have to make some hard decisions. And with that exclusively being under Dak, I have to call this a step back for the Cowboys going to third place. 9-8, my prediction for the Cowboys this year. I really don't think they improved, but I really don't think they got significantly worse. But those are some serious strikes against them.
Firing Kellen Moore actually may have helped them out in a way, because under that offense, they were 5th in total offense, and they had one of the best differentials in the entire NFL. Tony Pollard seemed to be just fine this year for the Cowboys. And then as far as the defense goes, sure, Micah Parsons is always a stud. And I really did think that losing Trayvon Diggs was going to hinder the secondary. But, man, Damon Clark and Bland on that defense, they really stepped things up. And the Cowboys took the NFC East crown from the Philadelphia Eagles and the number 2 seed in the NFC. But yeah, man, it seems like some of my takes for the Cowboys really did not age well as the season progressed. So moving on to number 6. At number 6 are the Green Bay Packers. So the biggest headline this year for the Packers was the obvious. How are they going to do in the post-Aaron Rodgers era? You know, how's Matt LaFleur going to mesh these teams together? Because they still have a strong defense. They still have some weapons on offense. But that didn't stop me from being a doom and gloomer when it came to Green Bay this season. Let's hear what I had to say about them.
In the basement, get ready for this. The Green Bay Packers. They lost Aaron Rodgers. That's all you need to know. They don't have Devontae Adams anymore. That's all you need to know. Jordan Love is their starter. They don't know what they have in him. And him playing a full season like this, where, yeah, he did learn under Aaron Rodgers, but that's not to say that lightning's going to strike for the third time, where Aaron Rodgers learned under Brett Favre, and now Jordan Love's going to learn under Aaron Rodgers. We have to see that. Christian Watson's improving. He's having a lot of confidence as well. And then you still got Aaron Jones and A.J. Dillon in the backfield, and the defense is still competitive. But with me, the Packers just seem to have lost that spirit that they had. And it showed a lot of last season as well. They missed the playoffs, but they shouldn't even have been in that predicament. Green Bay did do well to add receiving options like Jaden Reed, Luke Musgrave, and Tucker Kraft early in the draft as the targets that can grow with Jordan Love. But the losses on defense with Jaron Reed and Dean Lowry are going to sting. And here's a hot take of mine. The Packers should honestly tank this season. Because if Jordan Love shows that he's not the guy moving forward with them, they know that in next year's draft, they got Caleb Smith on the board. Caleb Smith, great young quarterback, projected to be the top guy. So in my opinion, if Green Bay is way under 500 by midseason, they should just punt this season. I mean, they should just punt this season no matter what, because I would not be confident with Jordan Love as the starting quarterback. This should just be a sacrifice year for Green Bay. So I actually have Green Bay finishing last in the NFC North this year, finishing 6-11. They just really didn't improve much. Just a lot of in-house guys that need to step up, in my opinion.
So, yeah, I mean, we didn't know what we were going to have in Jordan Love, but now we do know what they have in Jordan Love. Because if there's one franchise in the NFL that's great with quarterback development, it is the Green Bay Packers. Jaden Reed, Romeo Doubs, Musgrave stepped up when things were quiet. I mean, that's a nice, Watson. Those are a nice little... That's a nice little tandem of targets that Jordan Love has to work with. And especially in the second half of the season when he went on that 21 touchdown to 1 interception stretch that the Packers had. So, yeah, I mean, there was a lot to like about the Green Bay Packers this season. I would actually say Watson was the least productive of those three. But, man, they lost the spirit. They should tank this season. Oh, my goodness. I mean, this team won 9 games and they won a playoff game. But, yeah, they should definitely tank, right? Man, some of these teams, I don't know what I was thinking at that time. But let's move on to number 5. My number 5 team are the Houston Texans. So the Texans, it's pretty easy to understand that everyone thought Houston was going to stay in the basement in the AFC South this season, considering the team they had, because it was a bunch of young guys.
And starting off in last place are the Houston Texans once again. Now, let's be fair with the Texans. They did make some big moves in the offseason, like they drafted C.J. Stroud and they traded for Will Anderson. They hired DeMeco Ryans from San Francisco, I believe, who is a really good defensive-minded coach. Dalton Schultz and Shaq Mason are there. Jimmy Ward they got from San Francisco as well. Shaq Griffin along with Stingley should fit nicely with that defense. But trading the first rounder for next year, little bit of a head shaker for Houston. I mean, this is just a very young team that they still have a lot of experience and a lot of steps to go away with being a serious contender. But, they brought in, they still have they need breakouts from like Nico Collins and Robert Woods, who they brought in, and John Mechie as well. Devin Singletary's a nice addition, and Jimmy Ward I already said Jimmy Ward, I'm sorry. Sheldon Rankins as well. But the thing is, none of them players will bring the Texans back to contention. The Brandon Cooks trade, like I said, it's a big body blow that kind of offsets many of the moves. And the biggest splashes came with the extension of left tackle Laramie Tunsil, and they drafting C.J. Stroud and Will Anderson as well. And that really came with a huge trade cost, and Houston's going to send a massive haul to the Arizona Cardinals that included the first-round pick in 2024, like I said. So the Texans made some moves, but not enough for them to get out of the basement. I still think that this is just a young team, and there's just going to be a lot of growing pains. 4-13, my prediction for the Texans. They also just have a really questionable quarterback situation as well, but even though it shouldn't be a no-brainer.
Well, yeah, Houston did have some young guys this season, and to be fair, nobody expected C.J. Stroud to step things up. But Tank Dell, that guy stepped up when he was healthy. He had a really solid season, but no one's going to bring them back to contention. Houston won 10 games, and they won the AFC South, and they demolished the Cleveland Browns in the AFC wild card. But yeah, none of these guys are going to help the Houston Texans go to contention. They won at least 70% more games than I thought they would at the beginning, and it really seems like the Cooks trade didn't hurt them at all. So yeah, Houston, you have a problem, and it's that I was way off of you before the season began. Number 4, the Cleveland Browns. Here's where it starts to get good. Now, we all know the Deshaun Watson trade was going to be a disaster. We all know that was going to hurt the Browns in the long term. However, never did I think that Cleveland could actually strive with 4 quarterbacks this season.
But in last place, I'm going to say the Cleveland Browns remain in last place. It was a tough call, but I just think what the Browns did this offseason was good, but I just don't think they improved enough. It's just more so of if this happens and that happens and this happens, it's a lot of ifs for the Browns, okay? Because you got to look at Deshaun Watson and that contract eating up all the cap, and now they don't have any trade picks until at least 2020, or draft picks until 2025 in the first round to be able to recover from that, because Cleveland mortgaged all that. But as far as Nick Chubb is in the backfield now, he has it all to himself now that Kareem Hunt is gone. I think that's the only thing that's going to keep the Browns afloat as far as the offense goes, because Nick Chubb is a phenomenal running back. As a Steeler fan, he is really the only player that really concerns me on the Browns, because we know how to stop Watson. We know we can lock down their targets. But that being said, Cleveland did gain some with Elijah Moore, Amari Cooper still there, and they got a new defensive coordinator, which needed to happen. Joe Woods was just not making the cut in Cleveland. The Browns were able to find enough money to revamp the defense with some free agent names like Dalvin Thompson, Juna Thornhill, and then Ogbenina, I can't pronounce this guy's name. Ogbenina Arkanokru. Please correct me if I'm wrong. I know I'm butchering the hell out of his name. But overall, you look at the Browns, yeah, they can make some noise. I anticipate them to be in the playoff picture this year, but it's just a really tough division. It's anyone's, to lose. And the Browns, I'm not saying they can't win the division, but if you ask me, I just think Cleveland did the least to improve in this division, and I got them finishing 8-9 this year. It's going to be a tough year for this division. Honestly, I think it's going to be a repeat. All 4 teams split with each other once again in this division.
They didn't improve enough. The Browns didn't improve enough. Well, let's just say the ifs worked out. Kareem Hunt did come back, and Kevin Stefanski is a Coach of the Year candidate because he took this Browns team to the playoffs with 4 quarterbacks, like I said, and he got the most out of that backup run game led by Jerome Ford. That defense at times this season was looking like it was going to be on the same level as the '08 Steelers and the 2000 Ravens. So, I mean, that should tell you right there how way off I was about the Cleveland Browns right there. Amari Cooper, solid season. The Browns targets, more specifically David Njoku, fantastic season. Myles Garrett's always going to be in the talks for Defensive Player of the Year. But last place didn't improve enough. I think the stats speak for itself with this Browns team. All right, number 3. I hate to admit it, but number 3 are the Baltimore Ravens. So the Ravens, going into the season, they had Lamar Jackson extended. He still had the chip on his shoulder about, can they get over the hump? Can he stay healthy? Can they avoid that December collapse? Well, I was so sure that was going to be the case once again for Baltimore with my take on them last summer.
Okay, third place. Get ready for this. I got the Baltimore Ravens finishing third in this division. Now, let's get the big one out of the way. They finally extended Lamar Jackson. I knew they were going to extend him because he gives the Ravens the best chance at winning, especially how they played in that wild card game against the Bengals. They almost beat the Bengals with Tyler Huntley, for crying out loud. But really, they needed to keep Lamar for the long term. And they got a new offensive coordinator. Greg Roman's finally gone, so how could the Ravens possibly finish third? Here's the thing about it. We know the kind of quarterback that Lamar Jackson is. They're going more for a pass attack, and let's face it, Lamar is just not the best thrower. That being said, he probably has the best targets that he's ever had with Mark Andrews. He's still there. They added Odell Beckham in free agency. Zay Flowers was a great draft pick. Bateman's back and healthy. He has to be a standout receiver if he's fully healthy. Still got J.K. Dobbins in the backfield, but they also missed out on getting DeAndre Hopkins as well. So I think that kind of hurt the Ravens a little bit, but they still have some pretty good targets. That being said, Baltimore still has one of the best defenses in the league, and it's still strong. Baltimore has a long list of veteran free agents sitting on the market, like Marcus Peters, like Justin Houston. JPP is there as well, and they added cornerback Rock Ya-Sin and other candidates from within to replace departing veterans. And you might be, so with all that being said, it's just how can the Ravens possibly finish third with all these players that they brought in and these necessary cuts that they had? It's simple. The Ravens always start the season strong, and then they implode in the second in the final month of the season. They've done this the past 3 seasons now. We saw it in 2020, saw it in 2021 especially, and we even saw it low-key last year. If the Ravens can avoid a bad December, then they can easily take this division. But until they stop with the late season implosions, I'm going to say this is just a team that's not one of the top teams in the league. They're a wild card team at best, and they're going to miss their chance at really being a Super Bowl contender. That's just me saying that as, not just as a Steeler fan, as much as I love to say it as a Steeler fan, I'm just saying it as a football fan who has seen this movie for the past 3 years. Baltimore finishes 9-8 this season. They have a tough season as well.
Lamar Jackson only had the best throwing season of his career, in my opinion. Yes, even better than 2019. 24 touchdowns, 7 interceptions, 3,678 yards passing, and a 102.1 rating. So it really just goes to show you how incredible a new offensive coordinator can make a difference in your entire offense. And if you really want me to be honest, not getting DeAndre Hopkins didn't hurt them at all. They did not implode. As a matter of fact, it was the complete opposite of imploding, where they played their best football down the final phases of the season. And in all honesty, the Ravens could have been 17-0 this season. As a Steeler fan, I hate saying that, but it's true. Because the 4 losses the Ravens had this year were not by double digits. They had a choke job against Indianapolis and then lost in overtime. They had several key bad plays against us in our first matchup early on in the season. And then they blew a big lead against Cleveland late in the game in the second game against the Browns. And then we beat them in the regular season finale because they were resting their starters and it was just a throwaway game. So, I mean, yeah, the Ravens honestly could have gone 17-0. I hate saying that as a Steeler fan, but I come on here and I just be unbiased as I can with every team in the league. But yeah, the Ravens, I was way, way off of them. Now, my number 2 teams, and these 2 teams, I've said all season long that I was way off of them. I was totally wrong about them. And now I'm really going to get in the meat potatoes of it. Number 2 are the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Now, the Bucs appeared to have had a fire sale before the season began, and it was pretty easy at the time for me to understand why I thought they could take several steps backwards. But I didn't think that they could actually earn a division title this year. Let's just put it like that. Let's hear what I had to say about Tampa Bay.
Last place. I'm saying the Tampa Bay Buccaneers finished last place in this division. They did more than lose just Tom Brady, okay? They're going to start to feel the after effects of losing the GOAT. But Baker Mayfield seems to be revitalizing his career on his short stay with the Rams. And the Bucs are now on that improved play continuing in his new home. But is Baker Mayfield really the guy? He is now in, like, journeyman status. That is a very low bet after his struggles with Cleveland and Carolina. And the team also moved on from several veterans. Aside from Tom Brady, they also lost Leonard Fournette, Julio Jones, Donovan Smith, Raheem Nunez-Rox, Mike Edwards, and Logan Ryan. They held on to those guys for more than 2 years, and now they're all gone. There are going to be a lot of hiccups in youth across the boards this year for the Bucs. And the team just starting to look at rookies is just going to be a very poor and down season for them. Tampa Bay, in my opinion, easily had the worst offseason. I got them going 4-13 this year. Terrible year for the Bucs.
You know, the only thing that I was sort of right was that Baker Mayfield was in journeyman status at the time because this was his fourth team. I think it was his fourth team in less than a year. But is he really a journeyman now? I mean, the guy's playing for a long-term contract now, and he actually turned in a really good year for the Buccaneers. The run game wasn't too strong, but it didn't really need to be all that strong, if I'm being honest with you. Because look at Mike Evans and Chris Godwin. I mean, they just carried the load once again as far as the weaponry goes for Tampa Bay. And then as far as the defense goes, Levante David and Yaya Diaby, I mean, those are really 2 good playmakers that the Bucs have defensively. I mean, sure, you might say they won the NFC South by default because the NFC South stinks. And, you know, that's kind of true. But I actually feel like Tampa Bay earned it this year. Because they went on a tear before the season ended, and then they waxed Philadelphia in the divisional, and then they had a tough loss to the Lions in the divisional. But honestly, the Bucs may actually be on the uprise this year more than the decline. So yeah, Tampa Bay, I was way off of them, in my honest opinion. And now the number 1 team that I was wrong about this year, the Los Angeles Rams. Let's just hear the take that I had on the Rams back in summer.
And then in third place, not doing much better, are the Los Angeles Rams. The Rams, I think they are going to be terrible this season. The Rams lost a lot of key players in key areas as well. Jalen Ramsey, Bobby Wagner, Nick Scott, Leonard Floyd, all gone. LA is going to be looking for a lot of true stars and scrubs at this situation. And even with Matthew Stafford coming back, I just don't see how it's going to help him much. So it's, in my opinion, all on the shoulders of Cooper Kupp and Akers maybe to carry the team. And while Aaron Donald is a fantastic, legendary defensive player of all time, he's the entire team now. Three guys don't make a whole team. That's the whole gist with the Rams. And they're going 4-13 in this year. They're going to be duking it out with the Cardinals for Caleb Smith.
Yeah, they're definitely going to be a top 5 pick this year, aren't they? Yeah, a top 5 pick. I didn't know a team that won 10 games and was the second wild card in the NFC was qualified to be a top 10 pick. But Matthew Stafford, in the games he played, 24 touchdowns, 11 interceptions, almost 4,000 yards passing, a 92.49 rating in 15 games. Cooper Kupp, I mean, sure, he was hurt for a portion of the season, but he was really good in the games that he played. But what about Kyron Williams? What about Royce Freeman? What about Puka Nacua actually leading the team in receiving yards? Does that sound like a team that's going to have a top 5 pick this coming spring? No, it doesn't. I mean, sure, Aaron Donald's going to be the whole team. I mean, sure, Aaron Donald's one of the greatest defensive players to ever play. But Kobe Turner actually led the team in sacks, and Ernest Jones led the team in tackles. But this Rams team is sure going to be duking it out with the Arizona Cardinals for the number 1 overall pick. And by the way, it's Caleb Williams, not Caleb Smith. But you guys know what I mean. Yeah. I was way off of the Rams. Not even funny. I was like in another universe with what I was saying about the Rams. But yeah, those are my top 10 teams that I was completely wrong about for this season at the NFL. So, yeah, man, let me know what you think. Did you guys have a team that you were wrong about? Did you have a team that you were right about? Let me know what you think down in the comments. But yeah, these are the teams that I was way off of, man. This is Mac checking on out for the day. Have a good one, everybody.